From Keenan Stadium in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, this is TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner. Joining me as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, we're back with the phone microphone tonight. A little disclaimer. Let me put a little disclaimer in here. I actually ordered us 2 handheld microphones. Supposed to be here this week. Came in, and they were not what I ordered. So Monday they will be here. So fingers crossed for the Minnesota game. We will be out here with 2 microphones. I do.
We're kind of, toughen it out.
Yeah, and again, we're using it because I think it sounded a lot better. We actually don't have leaf blowers around us. We do have some people cleaning over here.
Because it's wet.
That's a good point. That makes a lot more sense.
And it could start raining again any time now.
Exactly. So as long as I can remember to dish back and forth, we'll see how my sleight of hand is today. But AJ, we're here following Carolina's 40-34 overtime victory over Appalachian State. Seems like every time these programs meet, it's a heck of a game, isn't it? It just feels like that happens every single time. So first thing I want to talk about.
By the way, App's proven something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think
they can play.
Got to give them credit.
Carolina fans can't diss App. Just let it go.
Yeah.
Because ECU's won 3 in a row against Carolina, routed them. App State has been right there at the end of the game 3 straight times. So those are good. ECU may be down right now, but App's a good program. There's no shame in beating App. It's a good program.
No.
But Mac doesn't want to play him anymore.
No, and I don't blame him for a number of
Most people in here probably don't want to play him anymore.
I think you're probably right. And AJ, first thing I think we have to start with is the offensive line, and building off of that, I think it's Omarion Hampton, 234 yards on the ground today. I believe he was only 26 carries as well. He was absolutely fantastic. I was on the field doing video, so my understanding of kind of stats and what's going on is pretty much nil until I get back to the press box after the game. So I almost had a double take when I saw that because I knew he had a big game, but I didn't quite realize how big of a game he had. But credit to him. It wasn't a great night for the receiving corps. It wasn't necessarily a great night for Drake May passing the ball, but Omarion Hampton carried the load with British Brooks being out as well. Yeah. I thought he looked absolutely fantastic. So, AJ, talk to me a little bit about Hampton and I guess building off of that, kind of the offense and O-line as a whole.
Yeah, Max said, we got a horse like that, we got to ride him. Drake said, you got a guy like that, ride him to the winner's circle, and that's what they did. Ball, man, yeah. I will say, before we go for a while on Omarion, Willie Lampkin and Diego Pounds in his first career start did a phenomenal job on the left side. There were so many big holes over there. Willie just grinds his guys.
He is from being on the field, he is the most physical and vocal guy.
Well, he has to be because he's got a chip because he's 5'11". Yeah. But he's also got automatic pad level. Mm-hmm. Pad level is so important in playing the line of scrimmage. He's kind of got it built in, and he uses it to his advantage. I mean, he rides guys out. If you ever watch dudes on a sled in practice and they're supposed to turn the sled, that's Willie Lampkin on the field against guys from other teams. So, and he knows the App State guys. He's played against them before, so I mean, he had a lot of success. Diego did a nice job. The offensive line in general, especially those inside runs. It's 2 weeks in a row that they did a really good job inside the tackles of running the ball and blocking and doing a really solid job of winning the number of snaps that are taken. Absolutely. As far as Omarion goes, the point of emphasis for him in the offseason was vision and when to accelerate. So, Phil Longo a year ago, and Larry Porter's talked about it, and Omarion has too, he would get the ball and he was indecisive. It would take a while to make a move, and that's why he got hit in the backfield so much last year. He had a couple of those 100-yard games, but FAMU and Georgia State, against the other teams, he didn't have that much success. Mm-hmm. Tonight, you saw a guy who ran decisively, and I asked him, I said, how early in the game did you recognize you weren't going to have to think so much about where that hole is? You know that the line's doing a good enough job. It's going to be there, and you just attack the hole. You dart right through it. And he said he started realizing it pretty quickly, and that's what you saw. A guy getting to the second level, the difference between the physical specimen he was last year, which was big time, being confident and decisive, and the same guy physically this year who is highly confident, very decisive, and fully trusted his line in front of him. That's what the combination was, and he ran for 200 and whatever yards.
234, I believe.
And without him, they don't win this game. And without him having a massive game, they don't win this game. Yeah. There are a lot of little things that came up during the course of the game. Don Chapman's interception, we're going to talk about some of these things. Des Evans occasionally getting some pressure, forcing some bad throws. Drake made some plays, but from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, Omarion Hampton was the star of the show for North Carolina, along with the guys blocking up front for him. And without that complete four-quarter performance, and I know he had a big run, but it was a four-quarter performance. Without that, North Carolina doesn't win this game. So that's good. knowing you can lean on it. When people on Twitter, when I tweeted out that British Brooks wasn't playing, oh my God, we're going to lose. British Brooks is an incredible story, and he's a good talent. He's a wonderful guy. He might play in the NFL. Omarion Hampton is someone in the program very close to the situation, told me off the record a couple weeks ago. He's a freak. He can be a freak. He's a downhill freak. He's a barrel when he starts going downhill. We saw that tonight.
Yeah, I actually have I'm going to give a quick story on Omarion Hampton. I was downtown Raleigh ice skating a couple years ago. You can probably guess I was with my girlfriend. I don't know if she was my fiance at the time. I can't remember. I think it was before then.
She sound that you knew Omarion. She probably became your
Yeah, exactly right. I'm ice skating. I think it was like the Red, I forgot what they call it, Red Hat Amphitheater. They had an ice skating rink there. And Omarion Hampton, he was still a high school senior. He pulled up. I think he was with his girlfriend or who knows, with somebody. And I almost had a double take because that was the first time I'd seen him in person. Just physically how big he was, you're like, oh, okay, I understand it now. I understand why he's such a highly rated back, because he's always kind of looked the part.
Didn't you tweet a picture of him from high school the other day?
I don't know. I don't think it was me, but somebody might have.
By the way, it's muggier than hell here right now.
Yeah, it's a little
I had to go up and down these steps here to get me.
10:35.
Someone on our staff put out a picture of him when he was in high school. It's like, gracious.
Yeah.
If you didn't know anybody, you think he's a 25-year-old in the NFL.
He's absolutely massive, and he was fantastic again tonight. We'll be putting out an offensive highlights video, kind of top plays from tonight's game. You will see all his big runs in there, so stay tuned for that one.
He was it.
Yeah, he definitely was. AJ, second thing I kind of want to talk about is Mac had some interesting comments after the game about practice this week, kind of talking about how the team didn't practice great this week. And I'll preface that by saying there is a lot of things. There was a few things going on in the program this week, especially with the Tez Walker. Very emotional situation for a lot of people. Something that for the coaching staff and players, just I'm sure can take a little bit out of you. I'm not using that as an excuse, because Carolina should, I think, have matched the physicality a little bit better early on and imposed their will a little bit better on App State than they did. So it's not an excuse, but I do think you have to consider that a factor, especially with Mac's comments like that. But coming out and saying that, I think you have to take a positive away from it. It is a negative that was a part of practice this week, but I think the positive tonight is they found a way to win, and I think you have to definitely take that going into next week. So talk to me a little bit. You were in the press conference. I wasn't. I was in the photo area editing video and whatnot, but tell me a little bit about those comments and kind of why I think in our eyes ultimately it is a positive. Despite a poor week, despite a lot of things going on in the program, Carolina finds a way to win tonight.
I asked him about those comments and about all the things that didn't go maybe as pretty as they would want, and he still came away with a win. I actually think it's okay. I think secretly he might sit in his office, may tell Sally, I'm kind of glad this happened. I'm kind of glad we had this week of practice. I'm kind of glad things weren't smooth. We had to bring the pickaxe out there and kind of hack our way to a victory, which is what they ultimately did, because it's not always going to be smooth. And I think coming off the week that they had, maybe the worst thing for this group would have been to come out here and just annihilate App State like some people thought. I thought they were going to win big. But what happened is human nature. Anybody that follows our stuff,
we talk about that a lot.
Human nature finds itself right here, on the ice, on the field, on the court, whatever it is the playing surface is. Human nature is there all the time and never leaves. And sometimes human nature gets you up to where you play like they did last week in South Carolina, make the big plays, put a team away, and you man up. Sometimes human nature means you have to man up against a team that maybe you should, on paper, defeat more decisively because you didn't have all your T's crossed, all your I's dotted. I actually think really good teams grow from that. In basketball, we talk about a lot. There are a lot more games you can have that with in basketball because there's a lot more time to grow. Football, there's not as much because one loss, especially like tonight, would have destroyed any kind of CFP hopes, right?
Absolutely.
And the reason I say CFP is because they're thinking CFP. I've been told by people inside the program, why can't we be this year's TCU? Well, look at what TCU did a year ago. They had to win games like this all the time.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so I think winning a game like this, getting the pick by Don Chapman, getting Drake's touchdown run, and then giving up his body when he knew, he actually sat and watched the replay and realized Bryson Nesbitt was open. So he's sitting there learning in that moment. There's so much to learn from a game like this, maybe more than a week ago, and it's good it happened now because they're going to get a similar physical opponent that wants to run to coming in here next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a club that's going to want to whip them at the line of scrimmage, and a team that's better than App State. So I think this was good to have this game now after the world pats them on the back and the week before what will be a very challenging game. And I also think, too, part of the explanation for not having a great week in practice, aside from just being human nature, the Tez stuff, I think that's weighed on these guys.
Of course, yeah.
I think the emotions surrounding game day, there was so much put into that. And all of a sudden, okay, now we're home against App State. We're on the ACC network at 5:15. That's all part of the growing process. Some of the guys that were jazzed up, some of the new guys like Elijah Hussey, I don't know how many times people asked him before the season, what's it going to be like being on ABC, playing game day? He's like, oh, my family's only ever watched me on ESPN Plus before. Now they get to watch me on regular TV. So that all factors into it. And guess what? They got to win. And they beat a good team. All right? They beat a good
Absolutely. You got to give that
hell of a program.
Yeah,
it's 100%. A winning culture program. It's a program that you said before we turned the camera on. I mean, they bring their lunch pail and they come here to fight. And sometimes North Carolina succumbs to fights.
Yes.
They didn't tonight. They won. App played a great game. App has every reason in the world to be proud of the game they played, but also to be disappointed because they probably could have won, right? But Carolina got the win. So maybe last year or a year before, that, they wouldn't have won the game, but they did tonight. And I think if you're looking for a silver lining, I think it's a pretty decent-sized silver lining. They got this win. They're 2-0, and all their goals are still intact, and they have plenty to learn now.
Before we talk about what this means, I want to stay on something real quick because one thing I noticed from being down on the field, and I think if there's any, and you just kind of talked about it, if there's any maybe concern or negative to take away from it, you mentioned earlier that sometimes teams can come in here and play Carolina, not necessarily in Canada anywhere, and kind of impose their will on them early, and Carolina never really recovers. And I thought that was evident again. It felt very much like I kind of had flashbacks to 2019 because I remember being on the field for the game here in 2019 where App was just the more physical team from the jump. They imposed their will early, and Carolina kind of dealt with it a little bit but could never really impose their will on them. And I thought that was kind of the same kind of theme, especially in that first half. Now, credit to Carolina towards the end because I think it became even. Yeah, and I think it flipped a little bit. But I think if there's any maybe negative, because I know we're talking about a lot of positives, and rightly so because Carolina win, I think that might be the one that I'm like, okay, you're letting a team at like App, who's a great program but is a Sun Belt team. You should be more talented. You should be bigger. You should be more physical. And you kind of let a team, once again, come in your house that's beat you in here before, that you always have struggled with, and they kind of set the tone physically again. For me, that was the concern. And what do you make of that? Could you notice that from the press box?
Well, I think App's offensive line beat Carolina's defensive line tonight.
Yeah, I would agree.
And there were periods that they were just whipping them. Whipping them. So, yeah, I agree with you 100%. But the difference between this game and 2019 is that team didn't return the favor and force the same will on to App State like Carolina did tonight. That's why Omarion's the X factor. Omarion, that offensive line, but Omarion made a lot of that happen. When he hits those holes, man, he's faster.
Yeah.
He's in that second level and he runs people over. So they had that tonight. Now, Javonte and Michael could have been that in 2019. Just the circumstances of the game didn't present that to him. The line didn't block as well. Tonight it was there. So Carolina was able to ride some of that lunch pail stuff to a victory. Drake had 43 yards passing at the half.
I know. And they still won. So I think that's a sign of a team that can be really good. I mean, they played a game that a lot of clubs would have beaten them tonight. But they didn't lose. And they beat a pretty decent team. So again, you move on from that. That's sort of what this means that we're going to hit on. Yeah, let's talk about what this means as we always do in this one. Obviously, Minnesota coming up next weekend before Carolina heads on the road to Pittsburgh. That's going to be a tough game. If Carolina comes out with the lack of physicality they did against App, I don't think that will be a problem. But if they do, then they will struggle against Minnesota because it is a good football team, and I think they will present some challenges, especially coming from the conference they're in. So, but 2-0 going into week 3. Got to be happy with that. You've had a convincing win over South Carolina. You're feeling really good about yourself. You're feeling great on national TV. Then you come into this game, home opener. Weather's not in your favor for majority of the day. App State comes and kind of punches you in the mouth early, but you ultimately find a way to win late. So it's been an interesting couple weeks. I like you said earlier, I expected Carolina to win a little bit more comfortably tonight. I probably should have known better when you look back at the 2 games they played against App State, but you live and you learn. So, AJ, what do you think this means?
I had the largest margin of victory on the staff.
Yeah,
so.
I think mine was like close to 17 too, which is not a great look now. But
more than that.
Yeah, I think I picked Carolina having 34 points, so maybe I was
hanging
close on that one. Yeah, hey man, it's an impossible task trying to predict these games. So, well, AJ, in your mind, 2-0 going into week 3, what does this mean for Carolina?
Well, quickly, the last 3 games in this stadium, the opposing team has come in here with a backup quarterback.
That's a great
won in overtime, lost in overtime.
Didn't think about that. That's a good point.
That's not a good look.
No, it's not.
But it is college football to happen. So what does this mean? They are 2-0. All their goals are still intact. And I don't think they're going to have the same week this coming week that they had this past week, because so much was learned. When you could open up and let all the guts pour out and see all the bad stuff and do it after winning, it's a lot easier to teach. And Max says tomorrow's practice it's going to be a lot better because he says he can really get on them. Like if they would have lost, he wouldn't get on them as much because everybody else is. Social media was kicking Chip Lindsey's derriere 5 minutes into the
People
game.
Overreacting on social media, that never happens.
Chiswick's back, all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're going to get clobbered out there, so he's not going to pounce on them, but he can now because they won, and there's just so much to. And again, like last week, some of the stuff that went wrong at South Carolina was all fixable. The things tonight, getting whipped at the line of scrimmage, generally speaking, I would say it's not fixable. You're just not as good, but we already know what this group is. So they just weren't as good tonight as they should be. That happens in sports. That's the beautiful thing about athletics is you don't know what's going to actually happen. It has to play itself out. And I think that's something they also learned too. Maybe they thought they were better than they were after last week. I mean, Kirk Herbstreit was just gushing all over them this morning.
I know.
They see that stuff, and this program has to learn how to handle that. It's something that hasn't had to do a whole lot before. Basketball, it's easier for them to dismiss things because it's always expected. It's always there. It's part of the DNA of a guy that goes to play basketball here. A guy that goes to play football here, a little bit different DNA. It's a DNA that they're trying to build. They're trying to, create through time, right? In order to do that, you have to win. You have to play well when you're expected to play well. And you have to learn how to stack those performances. My drop I did earlier this past week was about stacking performances. It was the first one I did because that's the most important thing. And they didn't stack the performance, but they still stepped up, made plays, and won a game. I think that propels you. Yeah. I really do. You go back and look at teams, whether it's the NCAA tournament when you barely win a game but you advance it. You go on to the next one, sort of survive and advance, learn what you need to learn, and get better from it. I think that this was placed at the exact right time. If this happened in October, I think it'd be more of a concern. Happened now, happened at this particular time, with all the emotion in the last couple of weeks, okay, it's understood. Now, if it happens again, then it's a problem. But I don't think it's a big problem because it's a one-off. I think it's a one-off. They're saying it's a one-off. And because I believe that this staff recognizes that they can crush them tomorrow in practice, just crush them. And they do it at 2-0, not at 1-1. And a lot more, they'll get a lot more out of it.
It's cliche, I always say it, but we'll see what happens next week because we will see what happens next week. We'll be here for that one. I think credit to App State because they are, like you said, really good football program. Yeah. I think Minnesota's a better program coming in here, a better team maybe coming in. I can't say program because App State's been phenomenal.
They got a good thing going there.
Yeah, absolutely.
They won 9 games last year. And they're picked to finish in the top 4 or 5 in the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, 100%. No, they're going to come in here, and it's going to be a tough game for the Tar Heels, physical game for the Tar Heels, and we'll see how they bounce back. But should be feeling pretty good, like you mentioned, at 2-0 going into Week 3. I mean, really, from a Carolina fan's perspective, I know it wasn't a great performance tonight, but what more could you really ask for? You're undefeated going into Week 3 and have another chance to get a home victory. So that'll be a real positive. Carolina can pull that one out. But I guess we'll go ahead and wrap this up, AJ. It's not 1 a.m. It's only 10:47, which for us might as well be like 7 o'clock. So that's pretty good.
I have 4 articles to write. Well, probably 3 tonight.
Well, I like
to get Trey and Brandon cranking some out.
Get them cracking, man. Get them cracking, man. Make sure you check out our YouTube channel as well. I posted a couple videos over there. I was on the field after the game, just kind of walking around my iPhone taking video. Go check that one out. It's on our Twitter as well. At least a snippet of it is. And we also have a pregame all access video, and I also have a
sponsor.
Yeah, a sponsor as well. We'll read that one in a second, too, because we are sponsored by BetterHelp in this one. So stay tuned for that ad read before we head on out of here right now. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. So whether it's dealing with, decisions around your career, maybe your relationship, or anything else, whatever it may be, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life so you can move forward with confidence and excitement and trusting yourself to make these decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the better and easier it gets. I know for me sometimes, as somebody who uses therapy, that sometimes talking things through with someone is just incredibly helpful, and we can all get in our own heads a little bit too much sometimes, and getting out of that by getting feedback from a licensed and trained professional can bring a ton of clarity to your life. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, guys, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule, which is just so huge in my opinion, because convenience is just so big in today's world. And with BetterHelp, you can do everything online. So let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THI to get 10% off your first month. Again, that's betterhelp.com/THI to get 10% off your first month. Links in the description below. Back to the show. Big thank you to BetterHelp again for sponsoring this show. And AJ, it's good to have them on board for this one. I know people will be watching this one because, anytime after a victory, people are feeling good about that. So 40-34 win for the Tar Heels over Appalachian State in overtime. Left it tight, left it close, but they found a way to win in the end. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones for TarHeelIllustrated.com. As always, make sure you check out our website. Make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe. Hit that notification bell as well so you know every single time we upload, guys, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.